And it's already loaded up. So.
And away we go.
Here we go.
Oh, it's already, that's right. You're listening to WPPM LP 106.5 FM in Philadelphia. And you're listening to the What's Next radio show and Reyes Latino Talk podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. This is your host, Rafael Collazo. On a balmy day in Philadelphia, family. Wow, it is so nice and warm. Okay, thank you so much for joining the What's Next family here, Philly Cam Radio, What's Next radio program, 106.5 FM. And from anywhere, you can listen to Philly Cam at phillycam.org/listen on the iTunes app. We are doing some big things here on community radio, people-powered media, and of course, we're always a podcast. We never go away. You can download Reyes Latino Talk podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, anywhere you can download a podcast. Are we okay, Vanessa, our executive producer? Making sure, okay, you can hear yourself, right, Dionely?
Yes, I can.
I can hear you good. All right. So we are doing our thing. And again, support the movement here. Subscribe, download Reyes Latino Talk podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, anywhere you can download a podcast. And of course, check us out on social media, on Twitter at Reyes Podcast, on IG at Reyes Latino Talk. You could always email us at podcastreyes@gmail.com. That's podcastreyes@gmail.com. You know, people do actually still use email. Dionely.
Absolutely.
Dionely.
Yes.
And later in the show, we're going to discuss the latest news headlines. A lot of talk about people cheating on colleges. My homie Beto O'Rourke is in the race. People have a lot of questions about that, Papi Chulo. And of course, speaking of Papi Chulos, A-Rod and J-Lo, the beautiful people, our love conquers all. Thank you again for joining us. And again, I always want to thank our Philly Cam family and the executive producer of the mothership here, Vanessa Maria Graver. But before we get into the news headlines, we have to introduce our very special guest.
Dionely.
Yes. No. I got you, girl. I got you. I got 3 Dominican compadres. I'm just want to make sure I introduce you properly. Our very special guest, author and speaker, Dionely Reyes. Dionely, welcome to Reyes Talk Show.
Thank you. I appreciate you inviting me on the show.
Appreciate you coming in, and I know you know me so well, so I really appreciate you jumping in. Shout out to our mutual friend Celia Rivera. Celia in the building. So we're with you, my friend. So the reason we wanted to have Dionely on the show is that she is an expert on a concept that we have to deal with in the politics we're dealing with, in our personal lives, in our workplaces, called gaslighting. And so she's going to teach us not only what gaslighting is, how we can understand how to identify it, how to deal with it, how to overcome it, how to move forward from dealing with it. And we're going to talk about that not only in her expertise, but also in the context of the politics, news issues, personal life. So a lot going on here. And Dionely, you are now an author, which is so exciting. You're the co-author of Delayed But Not Denied, 3 Real People Sharing Stories About Healing Growth. Dionely, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for allowing me and inviting me on your show. So, you know, I appreciate the different platforms so I could raise awareness and spread awareness about gaslighting. There's a lot of people that are actually living through gaslighting and they don't even realize it. So it's important for them to, knowledge is power, so I want to spread that knowledge.
Yeah, and I didn't really even ever hear the concept until politics, the Lauren Duke op-ed in Teen Vogue that talked about it in the context of how Trump is gaslighting America. So why don't we just start there, Dionely? So Dionely Reyes, share with us, what is gaslighting? What does that mean?
So gaslighting is an insidious form of persistent manipulation, brainwashing, that causes the victim to doubt her or himself and ultimately lose her or his own sense of perception, identity, and self-worth, to the point where he or she must rely on the gaslighter for a sense of reality and perception. And gaslighting can occur, as you stated, in personal relationships, at the workplace, or over an entire society through politics.
And so would you say that we find gaslighting, let's start kind of from a personal perspective. That's probably where people may understand, where they see it a lot in their lives. So where do you see it in people's personal lives, and how do you help people address how to identify it so they can try to overcome it and engage more positive relationships?
So with gaslighting, some ways that you could recognize that you may be going through this is that you have a feeling like something is off, or you have an uneasy feeling, that gut instinct. And a lot of people tend to ignore that. But if you're feeling that, you really got to pay attention to it. And feeling like nothing you do is ever good enough, and you find yourself apologizing often. especially when you bring up a situation that, I don't like that this happened, I don't like that you said this, that you said that, then somehow they find a way to flip it on you and you end up apologizing. And you no longer feel like the person you used to be, and you're constantly wondering if you're too sensitive. Because something gaslighters do is when you bring up a concern, they dismiss it. They're like, oh, you're just too sensitive, or that's not really happening, or I think you're crazy. You might be going crazy, or you need to relax.
So it's almost like how some of us would say, almost like a Jedi mind trick. Like when someone is, in a sense, being abusive or being manipulative, when you try to call them out on that, or when you sense it, before it gets to that point where you sort of call them out, they sort of try to get on the offensive to try to question your own thinking.
Exactly. They may dismiss it and say, no, that never happened, or that's not a real concern. You need to just relax. You're too sensitive. Or they may go as far as flipping it on you and saying, you actually did this. This is what you're doing. So then at that point, you're like, well, I don't even know where to go from here in this conversation. So it's pointless. That's the thing, that when you're being gaslighted, you try to speak to the person or that's gaslighting you. You try to use logic, and they're not using logic. They don't care about your feelings. They don't care about how things are affecting you. All they care about is pushing their agenda and getting what they want out of every situation. So you're just like, they dismiss you and they dehumanize you and belittle you.
And so when you're in that situation, how do you recommend people deal with it? Because this may be a loved one, this may be a life partner, this may be a supervisor at work. I mean, maybe someone that's kind of important in your life that you may care about a lot. So, like, how would you once you've identified it, how do you try to show the person that this is what's happening, or how do you handle that? Because that's a hard situation.
The thing is, a lot of the gaslighters don't really care about how things affect you negatively. So you have to reach out to your own support system, which one way that they do get to gaslight you, which, by the way, it's insidious, is over time. Is they don't come off right away and they tell you, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. At first, what they do is called love bombing, where they tell you everything you want to hear. So they gain your support, and you lower your guard, and you're just you have their back. They could count on you, and once they have you on their team, that's when they start trying to separate you from people who may oppose them. What they do also is they do something called they do what's called a smear campaign on the people that could speak negatively or speak the truth about them to you. One of the first things they do is they say, oh, fulano, this person, that person, yeah. I don't, for example, in a romantic situation, they may speak negatively about the exes. Like, oh, yeah, I used to date this girl, but she's crazy. She did this and that. They make up stories about them. So that way, if that person tries to come to you and warn you about them, then they already told you, like, oh, this person's crazy. So you already know, like, not to, or think you shouldn't listen to them.
I know people in our audience have never been in that situation. That's very common. So now you're getting some tools to understand how to address those things.
So it's important. Something that they do is they try to slowly but surely separate you from your support system, including like your family, your friends, anybody that could empower you or anything that could empower you. So in the end, the only source of power that you have or support is them.
See, this is an important conversation. And again, for our Facebook Live people, both on Dionely and my feed, I need y'all to share this. I need you to tag your friends. Dionely's providing some very, very important information, because whether it's your personal life, organizing as a parent, when I want to ask you those questions, this is a concept we need to understand. We need to understand the terminology. We need to understand the signs, and then how to and by the way, y'all need to support Philly Cam. You need to support Race Latino Talk Podcast. So Absolutely. It's a Thursday night. There's no Sixer game. I don't think there's a Sixer game. There's novellas are old school. We don't want to deal with that anymore. You can watch Netflix this weekend. Let's really get in this conversation. And again, we'll do the best we can to try to include your comments in our conversation here with Dionely Reyes, author, life force. Dionely, remind people they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. You could follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Is Did Inspire, DIDINS. PIRE, Did Inspire.
Okay, and I think from this concept is very challenging for organizers, the people that are like me that work in the political space, because our country is essentially being gaslighted by this president. The truth is upside down. He literally will just lie when the evidence is clear and it's not even like a major issue. And so a lot of people feel gaslighted. I think even a lot of them are understanding the signs. And so instead of that being a motivating factor, it's actually turning people away from being involved, because they're like,
It's exhausting.
And it's exhausting. You get this, and everybody, and there's all this false equivalency. And so I get into too many fights on social media about, well, the Democrats are just as bad, or you can't trust them either. They're all liars. But then that's what he wants. He wants us to kind of be discouraged and not get involved. So how do you, what's your advice for sort of like from a political perspective for people that are knocking on doors, talking to neighbors, and just trying to get people to understand the importance? Like, we have a voice, we have power, we're not hopeless, to stay involved and stay positive through this era.
So what is being done, what gaslighters do, is called triangulation, where they play people against each other. So they have you fight against people who would support you. So I think it's important to just try to like pick a subject or something that you want to, because you can't fix everything. Just everybody has to come together somehow and organize. It's not just, commenting on social media, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. It's about finding a solution and everybody coming together and having a plan.
Yeah, no, and I think you just brought up a good point, is that I think it's so important for people to reach out to their network of friends and reach out to people that really care about them. You know, there's a phrase that you're sort of the average of the 5 people you hang out with. And so, and I always tell people every year, try to, it's not in a cruel way, but if there's someone in your life, even if it's someone that's close to you that's not empowering you, that's giving you that negative energy, the only answer ultimately is to cut them loose, and that can be difficult. And sometimes you have to sort of manage those things, but I think it's really important to understand the system. And look, I mean, you can imagine how organizers, how exhausted they are. Now we have to get ready for another election. There's local elections in Philadelphia.
So fast.
Yeah, and the thing is, and I know it happens, people knock on doors, these people, none of them are going to do anything, and they're all bad, and that's a real emotion we have to deal with. So I did want to ask you, I would imagine you find this a lot, Dionely, in your expertise around gaslighting, and I know you speak to groups, you speak to all kind of organizations, women, young people, that I would think this is a big dynamic that's impacting our young people with bullying, cyberbullying, online bullying. So how have you seen that in your work, gaslighting playing out for the younger generation, and what's your advice to parents to sort of look out to see if this is happening to their kids?
Okay, so the thing with gaslighters is that they don't just randomly gaslight whoever. They target the weak or the people who don't have boundaries, the people who have low self-esteem. So something that parents could do and be proactive is to make sure that the children have strong, high self-esteem. So they know not to, the bullies know not to mess with them. But then once it's happening, they have to feel empowered to use their voice and come to the parents, speak to the teachers. They actually have to use their voice and say, this is happening, this is wrong, I don't like this. They have to be able and feel strong enough to speak up for themselves.
Absolutely. And what have you found has helped young people? I'm just thinking about these. I mean, there's kids being bullied, especially these young women are being bullied like as tweens. What have you found talking to young people that helps them understand this dynamic and helps them feel more self-confident in themselves to either speak up or address it?
They have to work on their self-esteem. Your focus can't be on fixing the gaslighter and having the gaslighter understand. It's more about you understanding that you are worthy of respect, that people have to respect you. They do not have the right to abuse you and dismiss you and dehumanize you. So it's all about their self-esteem and working and expressing and growing what they're strong in.
Fine, and we're going to hear more of Dionely Reyes' tips on how to deal with gaslighting. We're going to take a real quick break, and when we come back, the news headlines for a week. We're getting gaslighted left and right, my friend.
Oh, man.
You're listening to Dionely Reyes on Reyes Latino Talk Podcast. So I turned the mics off. We're muted. Hello, familia.
Hi.
You need to share. You need to comment, you need to let your friends know Dionely Reyes in the building. Much respect to Celia Rivera. I had a good, another Dominicana was going to join us today. She was in Delaware, but she couldn't make it happen. Shout out to Marlene Peralta.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
She's a New Yorker. She's big time. We'll give her a shout out on the show. I hope she's watching. And of course, Chrissy Rivera had a personal thing. So much love, Chrissy. Best of the family, okay? So I'm going to put the mics back on, and we will be back on now, okay?
Okay.
You're listening to Reyes Latino Talk Podcast and Philly Cam Radio, WPPM LP, Philadelphia 106.5 FM. This is big time stuff, Dionely, FM radio. Dionely said, "Where's your studio at?" I said, "Man, it's downtown
It's in Center
Philadelphia,
City, honey.
right in the center of the universe." We're having a great conversation here with Dionely Reyes, an author, speaker. Dionely, let people know, because I'm sure there's people watching, whether they work for the school district, they work at a college or university, they work with a women's group, that'd be interested to hear you come speak, and you do it in both languages. Dionely can come speak to your group in either English and or Spanish.
Absolutely.
So let people know how they can find you on social media and how they can tap into your services.
Me pueden seguir en mi Instagram,
Seguro,
Facebook, en YouTube, Did Inspire, Did Inspire. Me pueden seguir so you can follow me. You could DM me, send me private message on my Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. Did Inspire. Remember to subscribe.
Absolutely. And of course, continue to support the movement here, Raise Latino Talk Podcast. Download, subscribe the podcast, iTunes, Stitcher. You know, someone found us the other day on Podbean, and that was exciting. And I was at an event in Washington, D.C. last week, Dionely, and somebody came up. I didn't know who they were. And they said, "I just wanted to thank you for the podcast you do. I'm a big fan of yours. I started listening about a year ago." And they actually were listening because we had a Latina named Melissa Vargas on the show, una Colombiana in D.C., who's an environmental activist. Awesome. So it's good to have our Latinas that are involved in everything, activism, personal development, Dionely, healthcare. We're going to talk about healthcare in the coming weeks and month. We're going to talk about education in a second, immigration, Puerto Rico. The list goes on and on. We try to get into everything on Raise Latino Talk Podcast. And of course, the theme of today is trying to address gaslighting. Dionely in the first segment gave us some tips on how to identify it, how to address it, not only in our personal life and our politics, and in our and with our children, which is very important. Mm-hmm. And I know we wanted to get into the news headlines. Dionely, you know, speaking of education, there's this scandal where these rich people, they don't just want to help their kid. They don't want to just buy them a tutor. They don't want them, because they want them to go to the best colleges and have the guarantee that they'll get in. Forget all the other kids that are working hard. So they literally were bribing officials, coaches, university officials to get into some of these elite universities. I almost feel like this has been a form of gaslighting, because oftentimes, and I was blessed enough to go to a very competitive Ivy League university growing up in the hood. And you know, I worked pretty hard to get there. Our family worked very hard. Many of our people that supported me in my network, I certainly wasn't self-made. But that, you know, we get into these positions and people look at us side-eye like, "Oh, you're here because of affirmative action," or "You got this because of affirmative action." And it turns out that these people are literally paying cash money to deny their kids an opportunity. So I almost feel like if it's not gaslighting, there's some sort of playing going on, because minority kids often get blamed for taking someone's spot, and it's actually the opposite.
So gaslighting will be telling minorities like, "Oh no, we, you know, you guys, this is an even playing field," when it's not. So education is supposed to be the great equalizer, and is not. You can see it here, like allegedly people are bribing and paying people and coaches to make up that.
Even Aunt Becky from Full House.
Aunt Becky,
Bendito. I know there was a lot of Latinos out there that had a little sympathy for her on that
one.
Where
was Uncle Jesse?
Felicity Huffman, unbelievable.
No, so that's just another. You can see it again, that these people who are privileged, it's not enough that they're already privileged, that they're going ahead and buying their way into education and Ivy League education, and it's just, I don't even know I can't believe that happened.
Well, you know, it's interesting because it, and again, being very fortunate and privileged to have had that experience, there was a lot of my friends who I went to college with and are sort of in similar circles. It was interesting, the conversations we were having on social media, because it was like, why are people surprised? This used to happen all the time. And it brought up a lot of wounds. I'm thinking about my Colombia friends like Jorge and Angel, Rosa and Agnieszka and those friends. And we were on DMing each other that I think it brought up a lot of old wounds for people, because think about it. We have so many people in our community, the best and the brightest, that work hard, that to sacrifice. I mean, it takes so much for us to be able to just try to get through college, much less a competitive college. And we achieve this, we make this achievement, and then people on some level, when you get there, when you get accepted, they try to take away from it, because they feel like, well, affirmative action, there's on some level you cheated, or you didn't do enough, or you're not worthy. And there's a lot of psychological trauma that happens when it's supposed to be like one of the best moments of your life.
Yes. So if it was an even playing field, then you wouldn't need affirmative action. And the fact that they're not just randomly picking whoever to go and be accepted in the schools, even through affirmative action. So it's just another way that people dismiss others' achievements.
Absolutely. And, it's the other, so it's going to be very interesting. I think it's going to, I think there's going to be more to the story. I think we're going to see, again, more people, more corruption, more payoffs. I mean, it happens. Look, and I'm a big sports fan, but it's so obvious that I get so upset because, these college coaches in basketball and football, they're always saying, oh, well, the kid gets enough, the athletes get enough, they get a free education, they get an education, and they're walking around making 7-8 figures on sneaker deals, and, it's like low, slave labor on some level. Mm-hmm. And, it's so frustrating because so many of these kids are getting used. And in this case, even some of the kids that are highest achievers are being stigmatized when all they're trying to do is get an education. And look, I went to Columbia University in the 90s. When I got into Columbia, that was highly competitive, but it was about 30% of the kids that applied got in. Nowadays, just because it's more and more competitive, more kids, and more people want to go to New York and all that, it's about, last time I checked, and my friend Jenny can verify this, it's about 7 or 8% that get in. The reality is 60-70% of those kids would have been perfectly fine to get into the school. Mm-hmm. It's just a numbers game, and you have to make some choices, right? But obviously, it isn't an equal playing field. Mm-hmm. I didn't have the same kind of academic opportunities as other kids, and there's kids that didn't have the opportunities I had. So, these kids need to be supported through this journey.
And all the things that we have to overcome as minorities. So that's something that they don't think about. So even the fact that you were able to overcome everything you did and still were able to maintain great grades and get in is just amazing.
Yeah, shout out to my buddies, my college friends, wonderful friends. I don't get to hear from them as much as I'd like. We're all so busy with our lives, but this triggered a lot of wounds and a lot of conversation. And I think I think our network of people that have gone to college and gone through the experience, we not only have to mentor the next generation, but I think we need to tell our stories.
Absolutely.
About how this impacted us from a mental health perspective. I can imagine, especially being a woman of color, then getting out of university like that and getting into corporate America or the legal field, the kind of stresses as they're trying to move up the ladder and people sort of looking at them, questioning their capability. And so that's a form of gaslighting.
And it's important, I think, to have the conversation, not with just people that are like us, not just other Latinos, but also people who are like them, who are privileged. Because I think one way to defeat racism is with contact, with speaking to people of other races. Because I think I think ignorance is the true enemy. So if you have, I can't imagine being racist against somebody or somebody being racist against another person when you're friends with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think a lot of them, they just don't understand.
Yeah, no, and there's a phenomenon. Look, I've even seen where someone's in an interracial relationship and they still harbor racist attitudes toward people from the group of their partner. So it's an illness, it's insidious. And I think you're right because, unfortunately, it's so ingrained in our society and our psychology. I mean, look, Latinos have a lot of this in us, too. So it's not just white people, but, we have to address it. And it's so ingrained, people don't even realize it. So we have to call it out, and our white allies have to call it out amongst their family and friends. Mm-hmm. In the same way Latinos do. I talk a lot about identity and color on the show because, if we have to deal with these issues of Pelo Malo and all that crap, mm-hmm. and colorism and everything, that we can't expect other communities to address those issues unless we do them with ourselves.
Absolutely.
And Dionely has a question for me on the news headline. So she wants to find a little bit more about the Trump budget. She's got some questions. Dionely's an entrepreneur, so she wants to know about that bottom line, the cheddar. So what's on your mind, Dionely?
So I wanted to ask you about the Trump budget that came out this week. It had cuts to programs in healthcare, nutrition, housing, and environmental protection. Is he trying to punish us? When he ran, Trump said, I'm not going to cut Social Security like every other Republican, and I'm not going to cut Medicare or Medicaid. So what's happening now?
Well, in my, I don't have the fancy terminology you do, but the bottom line is he lied. And this is kind of a gaslighting situation. So for people that didn't see it, the Trump, every president at the beginning of the year puts out a budget that's really like their wish list. It's like their mm-hmm. Christmas list, what they would ideally like to see the federal budget to be for next year, right? So, and so most of this won't pass. But in announcing this, he literally, as you said, $25 billion less for Social Security, $845 billion less for Medicaid, $1.5 trillion less for Medicaid. I mean, these are the services that are critical for people's health, for their lives, so they can have the kind of health care that they deserve minimally. And that doesn't even count the people that don't even have access to health care. And so this comes after, now let's remember, family, this comes after he pushed a tax cut of $1.3 trillion, 85% of which went to the richest Americans and wealthy corporations. And so if you want to know what's going to happen in 6 months, you listen now. Because a year ago and 2 years ago, when that tax cut was being passed, I said, now they're going to say there's no more money, we got to cut social programs. And so who does that impact? That impacts working people, that impacts women, the lower class people, and it certainly impacts people of color. So I think the gaslighting here, as we were talking about before the show started, is really against his supporters, because basically what he's been saying, in directas in his campaign is like, we're going to punish the people that aren't deserving, like you working white people. You're the real Americans. You're the ones that want America to be great again. But these other people, forget them. But if you're talking about Medicare, you're talking about Medicaid, these are the programs that impact all of us, but especially that community.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And it's amazing how in the beginning that's a big gaslighting tactic, is in the beginning their use was called love bombing. They tell you everything you want to hear so they could gain your support. And then once they have your support, then they go ahead and they change it up. And what they do completely contradict what they promised in the beginning.
Yeah, and so what are you thinking, Dionely? You have any questions for me?
So what's next in the federal budget process, and how can people have their voice heard?
Well, the good news is that it's just a wish list. And so because the Democrats have the House of Representatives, certainly very little of that budget's actually going to pass. I mean, we still have to fight because the Republicans obviously have a say on the Senate side. So the good news is that, but I think it's very important not only to contact your senators. I'm going to meet, for the Philadelphia people, to give you an example, it's not hard to reach these people. Congressman Brendan Boyle, that represents pretty much most of the Philadelphia east of Broad Street. I'm meeting at his district director Monday at his office in Bustleton Avenue. So these people are accessible to us. We can meet with our officials. We can meet their offices. And so we let them know, look, what does Medicaid and Medicare impact y'all lives, impact your mom's life, impact your family's life. So it's important to raise our voice in this conversation because we know the truth. We're not going to get gaslighted from this guy. And we have to keep fighting. Dionely, when we come back, we're going to stack some 20s.
Awesome.
This is the first time I'm doing the board, okay, people? So I'm working with the music, and Dionely's helping me.
You're doing good. You're doing
I'm trying. I mean, I just passed the test, so you have to understand. We're going to talk about stacking 20. Oh, I gotta get the money. Hold on.
I gotta bring out a 20.
You gonna bring out a 20 for our girl?
Yes.
All right.
Do I have cash on me?
All right. Hold on. Are you doing the? Oh, you're doing the bump too, girl. You're doing the intro.
What you mean the bump?
You're doing this.
¿Dónde está el?
Don't worry about the money. I got
cash?
it. You can do one. I do one.
No. I have cash.
Because I gotta get. We only got 20 minutes. I
got it.
Okay. All right then. All right. So you're doing this. Dionely's doing the intro. She's co-hosting too. So you're gonna do this.
Hello.
Hold on. Go.
You are listening to WPPM LP 106.5 FM in Philadelphia, and you are listening to the What's Next radio show and Reyes Latino Talk podcast. And back to our host, Rafael Collazo, who is stacking another $20 for Love Shouldn't Hurt.
Ooh, lo viste, Chrissy. The money's on the table.
And here's my 20.
Oh, that's right. We're all stacking 20s here for Love Shouldn't Hurt. Thanks to Dionely. We're stacking 20s. This is my favorite segment of the show, to be honest with you. It's our weekly segment where we analyze the presidential campaign. Each time a candidate declares, we stack 20s to donate to the Love Shouldn't Hurt movement. Christina Vega, our dear friend, our sister's campaign to support domestic violence survivors. This is a campaign I'm sure is very close to your heart with some of the work you do, Dionely. So no better charity, no better way we can support. And, we're stacking 20s because one of my young boys made a big announcement this morning.
So, Ray, let me see the $20 because former Texas congressman and the papi chulo of Democratic politics,
Bam.
Beto O'Rourke, announced his candidacy. Tell us about your boy, Beto.
Yeah, we tease a lot about Beto O'Rourke here on Ray's Talk Show, the former congressman from El Paso, Texas, Democratic candidate for Senate because, amongst other things, not just being a Blanquito whose nickname is Beto, but because we did go to college together. And so, I remember I had, so Beto.
You went to college at the same time?
I know, we used to drink beer and eat chicken wings together.
Wow.
So we're not, I don't want to overstate our relationship. I mean, we were acquaintances. I remember him. The whole thing with Beto, because of El Paso, we went to college in New York, so he used to hang out with the El Paso students. There was only about 5 or 6 of them, and they were all Latinos, so they were all my friends. So we hung out a few times. And I remember being Beto, like kind of a quiet, tag-along kind of guy, not like a leader. I think he was in a sport, so he wasn't around much, and he sort of floated around, but a nice guy. We used to call him Beto. I guess the Latinos did. I don't know about anybody else.
Is it short for something?
Yeah, Robert. So it's like the Latino nickname. So it's like, yeah, exactly. He's down. He's from El Paso, Texas.
Okay.
So let me give people the breakdown of Beto. So, I think there's a couple things here. On the positive side, Beto showed he could inspire, excite a lot of people with his Democratic, almost winning in the Texas Senate race against Ted Cruz, which a Democrat hasn't won a statewide office, Dionely, in Texas in like almost 25 years. I mean, you were a baby. The last time a Democrat won.
I wasn't even born.
Exactly, yes. With, what's her name? Miss Richardson, the governor back then. He's really good at like the social media, like that 2-minute clip kind of thing. Mm-hmm. He's a flaco, so he looks good on video. He's got, I don't know if you saw the Vogue, the Vanity Fair cover.
Vanity Fair.
Yeah, very papi chulo-ish. He's very, he looks good in a crisp suit. And, I think he raised a lot of money for his race. And I think the thinking with Beto on the positive side is that this is a guy that can appeal a lot to the people. The whole Beto thing, so he's got, he's a white guy. Seems like he has a good connection with Latinos, which I agree with. And, he seems like he can kind of have connect with a wide group of people across the political spectrum. Mm-hmm. The negatives are, he was only a congressman for a few years. He didn't really do that much. So he's got like a thin resume. So does he have enough substance? And do people care about substance? So he's going to now everyone's going to love him because it's all about him and his lovely wife, image, and sweet, him talking to people and shaking hands. And but once it gets into the debate, people are going to ask some really hard questions. Our executive producer pointed out to me very, very astutely that he was the number 2 recipient of oil and gas lobby money in Congress after Ted Cruz, and he was only one of 2 Democrats in the top 20. So he's like, he's got some answers around his connection with the oil and gas industry. Is he going to fight them when it comes to pollution, when it comes to the environmental issues, the Green New Deal? So a lot there, but I think Beto's going to be heard from. He's going to be a big part of this race.
Absolutely. So what is your prediction on how Beto will do?
I think Beto's going to do really well. We can debate, and I'm not just saying this because I have a little bit of a connection to him, but I just really think, a lot of us wish it was more about substance. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of us, and I think about the Obama race, he wasn't necessarily the best at all the debates, especially in the beginning compared to Hillary Clinton and those more experienced people. But I think a lot of us projected on him what we wanted to see. Mm-hmm. We wanted to see hope. We wanted to see diversity. We wanted to see a loving family. I mean, the Obamas, the best of that, right? And sort of overlooked those details about what he really was for with certain issues.
And we wanted to see something different.
Yes.
And at least see someone different in the White House that looked different, that looked like us.
Exactly. And it was young, and he related to a lot of people on a lot of levels, charismatic. Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. And so the question is, what are people looking for? So is it about the issues? Is it about a progressive agenda? Is it about one thing? Is it about just beating Trump? Who can that be? And I think all those things are going to add up to him being a very serious contender.
Now he has our attention, so what's he going to do with it? I think what he needs to do is have a solid plan. I feel like he tiptoes around. When they ask him a question, he kind of tiptoes around it.
Oh, there's no question. There's no question about it. So that's going to happen. I think, though, in the beginning, he's going to do his retail policy. He's going to be in Iowa this week. He's going to have a big rally in Texas in a couple weeks to do the formal announcement. But, that piece, he's going to be good at that. That, sitting in the diner with 5 people around in the pictures. I think it's the debates that's going to really challenge him because Booker, Harris, Warren, these are some of the top thinkers and lawyers in the country. They know how to argue. And so, is he going to be able to hang on that level? I don't know. But for now, I think he's going to do well.
So guess what Trump said when they asked him about him?
Talk to me.
He said... They asked him, so what do you think about Beto? Do you think that he's a strong contender? And what did he say? What did he respond? He said, well, he moves his hands a lot. I think he's crazy. Or he might be crazy.
You notice he talks about the people that he's scared of. So Biden and Beto and those are and Warren, those are the people that he's really scared of, and he's also scared of their intellectual. He's
Their
scared.
intellect.
He's
So
scared.
something also with gaslighters, you can't argue with them at their level.
Yes.
You can't have them bring you down with them. So you got to rise above it and keep it moving. You cannot play their game.
And that's another, in terms of what Beto's arguing, right? It's like, I'm going to be positive. It's not about him. It's about our vision. I'm not going to go down to his level. Like Michelle Obama says, when they go low, we go higher. So,
but stay high. Don't go low and then, go high.
Well, but and then what's going to happen? It's like boxing. It's like everyone has a plan so they get in the mouth, right? So what's going to happen when he gets attacked? Is he going to have that discipline? And ultimately, is that what we want? Do we want a fighter? We want a lover? It's going to be very interesting to see how it goes. But when we come back, one thing actually, we have to stack another 20. Christine, I'm being very fair to you, okay? Because we did not stack a 20 initially when Andrew Yang declared. Andrew Yang is a tech entrepreneur. He runs a nonprofit to support small businesses, rural America. When he announced, nobody paid a lot of attention to him, but he actually has reached the threshold. He has had 65,000 people donate to him. So now he's considered like a major candidate. So now he's eligible to be part of the debates.
Look at that.
And so he's really big in social media. He's got a concept called Freedom Dividend. He wants to give all of us a G a month just to give it to us.
Yes.
Universal basic income. So he gets a lot of love with the Generation Z, like the real youngsters. On social media, he's go with memes and videos. So
people who think $1,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah,
like
well,
it helps.
I'll take it.
I'll
pay a few bills.
$1,000.
Yeah, well, that's part of the argument, right? What does it really do, and is that the right way to support people? So, hashtag Yang Gang. So look out for my man Andrew Yang. So we stacked another 20 for Mr. Yang. So let me put this on, and we come back. We got to talk a little bit about A-Rod and J-Lo, and some final thoughts about gaslighting here with Dionely Reyes on Reyes Latino Talk Podcast. All right, we got 10 more minutes, so let's do the A-Rod thing, and then I want to give it a good 7-8 minutes to get into your tips. If you have any other tips around, what else? Is there any direction I should take you in?
Prevention and healing.
Prevention and healing, okay. So we'll do A-Rod, J-Lo real quick, and then prevention and healing. Mm-hmm. Okay, sounds good, all right. All right, we're back on. Did I put the...
So, okay.
I got you. Welcome back to WPPM LP Philadelphia 106.5 FM in Philadelphia, like my grandmother used to say. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, my Reyes Latino Talk podcast listeners, we're doing big things here. People love us being on WPPM Philly Cam Radio. They love the podcast. They love Philly Live. I get this all over the country. My homie Leo Perales from the West Coast was on the show the other day. We have people from coast to coast that are part of this program, either in the studio or around the country. Dionely, you know what they tell me? Where do you find these amazing people? This is what I'm going to get tomorrow morning. Especially, shout out to all my Dominicanos out there. We got a paisana in the building. We hadn't talked about that. And I want to give a shout out to my homie Albert Garcia. And he's one of my 3 Dominican compadres. I love them all so much, Danny, Jay, and LB. And I said, LB, I wanted to spring a great Dominican name on Dionely. And he goes, well, the best one I've heard lately was he actually met a kid, believe it or not, named Touchdown. And I said, but okay, fine. I said, but he also was the one that told me. Remember the character in the Heights, Uznavis?
Sí.
Well,
U.S. Navy.
Okay, but LB back in the days told me about a kid in the neighborhood that he knew with that name, a Dominican kid. So Uznavi.
U.S. Navy.
Dionely, where's your family from in Santo Domingo?
Monción.
Where is that on the
island?
island?
En el Cibao.
Oh, Cibaeña, okay.
Claro.
Seguro. So y'all know how to talk the birthplace. That's where bachata is really from. People don't realize that. Well, back in the days, I lived in New York and Washington Heights. I was on Dykeman. I was like real into Dominican.
Dykeman?
Girl, I was on it from Washington, the clubs. My homie Danny, we used to do our thing out there. But back then, bachata was really like a Cibaeño thing. And then that's when it started getting more mainstream with the people from the capital and more the crossover Dominican. And of course now it's blown up worldwide. So doing your thing, and we're having a great conversation with Dionely Reyes. Dionely, remind people where they can find your book and find you on social media if they want to contact you to speak to their group, do workshops with your community. And of course, shout out the book and where people can buy the book.
Absolutely. So go on my social media, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. It did inspire. It's my social media. Feel free to DM me, and I will be glad to respond.
And
English and Spanish.
Seguro que sí. And I don't think, Dionely, this is the last time you're going to be on the show. I have a feeling you're going to be a
okay.
regular.
I would love to.
Yashira Rivera and Chrissy Vega, we have a rotation of women that help me coast the show, but there's room. So we definitely would like to have you back. And
I appreciate
we
you.
like to support voices like yourself, perspectives. We like to combine the personal development with the political stuff. It's very important. And also, we like to support our small business people. So definitely want to support what you're doing. Really quickly, before we get into some of your final thoughts about healing as it relates to gaslighting, Dionely's really giving us a master's class on how gaslighting impacts our lives. There was the king and queen of Latinos got engaged.
Dios mío, boricua y dominicano.
Seguro, mejor combinación. A-Rod and J-Lo, any thoughts? You and your girlies were thinking about this engagement?
Bueno, mi amor.
Talk to me,
Hace
girl.
tiempo J-Lo asked the question, ¿y el anillo pa' cuándo? Y A-Rod responded this weekend in the Bahamas, I believe they were, toma tu anillo.
I tell you, boy.
Pero salió, porque there's always un chismoso.
Seguro.
Salió Jose Canseco.
Cubanito, sí, bien fuerte, yes.
Dijo, oh, look at A-Rod, look at him, his image. Well, he's having an affair with my ex-wife. Dijo él, can you believe that? But then the ex-wife is like, no, that's not true. But Jose,
Jose's like certified nuts. I mean, Jose is.
So let people be happy.
Jose is crazy. Jose's
live
crazy.
Their moment.
I'm happy for them. A-Rod's an interesting character. And one day we should sit down with a few Dominicans and really kind of get into how y'all really connect with him. He has an interesting relation with the community. But the one thing I'll say, and I have to say because it was funny, a friend of mine who will remain nameless, the sports referee said, if J-Lo gets one more ring, she ties Tom Brady and Michael Jordan for 6 rings because I guess she's been engaged 5 times.
This will be her 4th marriage, and she's been engaged. This is her 5th engagement.
Yeah, Casper guy, I think she was engaged.
No, not Casper.
El Cubano, back in the
days.
Hani Noah, whatever his name was.
Bailarín, Mark Anthony.
Was she engaged to Diddy?
No, they dated.
She was engaged to the actor, the tall guy.
Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck. We're getting.
Pero qué lista, Dios mío.
Not a bad bunch, but
to all the women that are hating J-Lo, look at her list and look at your list, okay?
Ooh, and and J-Lo, unlike her ex Mark Anthony, don't got kids in the street. She takes care of her kids. I'm just saying. Mark gets a big, with all you empowerment Latinas, he gets a real big pass on that. 5 kids with 3 different women. And he's not with any of them.
Eso significa, bueno.
But a canta, so, when he said, all is absolved. But anyway, that's another story. But I want to, before we wrap up the show, and again, you've been listening to Dionely Reyes. Dionely, healing, so important. And I wanted you to give people some final thoughts around how to heal. People are going through, have been gaslighted, are dealing with it, are still dealing with those wounds from years ago. So give us some tips about how to begin that process of continuing to heal through these situations.
So the healing process starts when you decide that you are worthy of love and being treated with respect, real love and
Amen.
Real respect. So you have to distance yourself from the situation, from the gaslighter, and focus on yourself. You cannot start off right away, let me try to analyze it, let me heal right away. You have to get away from it. You have to separate yourself. And you have to focus. Something that worked for me was that I super focused not on where I was. I didn't have time to analyze where I was. This is where do I want to be? Mm-hmm. And then I moved towards that because what you focus on, you give more power to. So that's something that's really important. And then once you're there, because you have to regain your strength. These people drain you of your strength, your sense of self, your identity. So you have to build all that up. You don't have time to worry about them and what they're doing. Oh, mira, qué malo, o qué mala fue conmigo. I wish this and that. Don't wish ill upon it because normal people, happy people, they don't do this to other people.
That's right.
So they probably have some pain or something that they need to heal from, but there's not your job. In fact, you staying there, you're enabling them to keep being the way they are.
How do you, if you're trying to help someone through this situation, either to see what you see, that there's gaslighting going on, or maybe they've seen it, but they're trying to just try to heal. How can a friend help someone in this situation?
I received messages through my DM of people like, yo, I think my friend's going through this. What should I do? It's not a good idea. It's not always a good idea to tell them, you're being gaslighted, you need to leave the situation, because they may be so brainwashed that they think, oh, look at this person trying to break what we have up. Oh, they're just jealous. And that's something that gaslighters do. Oh, everybody else is jealous. Tries to talk against what they're having is jealous. They dismiss them. So it's best to just, like I said, build up your friend's self-esteem, remind them how strong they are, how resilient, how independent they are, and how they could count on you. That's the main thing, because a lot of times when they finally do realize, I need to get out, they don't know where to get out. But if they know they have a friend there that has their back, it'll be better for them.
And when we had this conversation, we had a similar conversation with Christina Vega from Love Shouldn't Hurt around, part of the reason that she was struggling with sharing around her trying to survive domestic abuse is that she felt like her network wouldn't understand. And when she actually was to share, they gave her such supportive feedback, and she realized like the support was there all along. Mm-hmm. I just felt embarrassed, or didn't feel strong enough, and I didn't want, so there was all these emotions. It was a great conversation. I encourage people to listen to the Love Shouldn't Hurt episode about 6 weeks ago. But that's so important. We don't realize, and that's a big theme of the show, we don't realize the kind of support and love and network that we have around us. Mm-hmm. So we need to tap into that and not be scared. Holding it aside is not going to make you feel better. So I know we have to wrap it up. Dionely, Reyes, let people know they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. But first I want to get into what prevention is. Important that you build boundaries, healthy boundaries. Make sure that you're able to say no, and people have to respect when you say no, and have time to yourself, build up your self-esteem. Mi gente, remember to follow me on Did Inspire on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Remember to subscribe.
Thank you so much for joining the Reyes Latino Talk podcast. The podcast that won't be silenced, Dionely, because we're going to keep talking. So, saludos a mi gente. Have a wonderful day.
Amen. I had a whole thing about racism aquí atrás.
Well, then you come back.
Thank you. Yeah, there's so much. There's so many layers to it.
Well, seriously, we have to because they want to set up. Thank you, people.
We'll
be talking.
Thank you.
Chrissy,
Share.
let me know
Remember
when you're going to collect, okay? We'll see you soon. I may have to stay here to get you guys coming to get